Hello, hello. Today we are subtracting mixed numbers. Subtracting mixed numbers is a little different than adding mixed numbers, so stick with me and pay close attention so that you can find the difference and know how to subtract mixed numbers. We're on page 599 if you are not there yet. Okay, so let's look up here at the top. Lesson 7, subtract mixed numbers. You can use equivalent fractions to subtract mixed numbers. Okay, so think back to what equivalent fractions were. We did that in the previous chapters. Equivalent fractions are fractions that are equal to each other but look different. Okay, so we'll talk more about that as we go through here. Okay, example 1. Olivia had 4 3/4 boxes of games. She gave 1 1/4 of the boxes to her brother. How many boxes of games does she have left? So we need to find 4 3/4 minus 1 1/4. We have to write each mixed number as an equivalent improper fraction. This is the difference when subtracting mixed numbers. You need to change them into improper fractions first, okay? So 4 3/4, to get a 4, you think of 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. Each one is worth 4/4, and we know that by looking at the denominator. So I have 4/4, 4/4, 4/4, 4/4, and then the 3/4 from here, 3/4. So if I add all those up, I keep my 4 in the denominator, and then I add 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 3. 4 4s is 16 plus 3 is going to give me 19. Okay, and then I keep my denominator because that's just the same as adding a like fraction. Okay. For my 1 1/4, I have to change it to an improper fraction as well. So 1 is the same as 4/4, and I know that by looking at my denominator. So then I'm going to say 1 1/4 is the same as 4/4 plus 1/4. So I'm going to keep that denominator as 4, and I'm going to add 4 plus 1 and get 5. Okay. So I'm going to subtract the like fractions. So now I'm left with 19/4, which is the same as 4 3/4, minus 5/4, which is the same as 1 1/4. So subtracting and adding, same thing. You keep the denominator as long as it's the same. So I've got fourths. 19 minus 5 is 14. So I came up with 14/4. Okay. I can't report my answer as an improper fraction, so now I have to change it back to a mixed number. Okay, so I want to simplify. 4 goes into 14 3 whole times. Okay, there's 2 left over, that's my numerator, and I keep my 4 as my denominator. Well, 14/4 does equal 3 2/4, but now I have to simplify. 3 stays there, my whole number stays, but I have to simplify 2/4. What number goes into both 2 and 4? 2. So I'm going to divide by 2 and divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So 14/4 is the same as 3 1/2. And they actually show us here with a picture. So Olivia has 3 1/2 boxes of games left. Okay, and then it says use addition to check. So I would take my 3 2/4, and then I would add what I took away from it, 1 1/4. Then I would add all of those whole numbers together to get 4 and my fractions together to get 3/4. And that's what I started with up here. Okay, I know that seems like a lot right now, but we'll work through some more problems as the lesson goes on, and you'll probably start to understand a little bit better. Okay, you just have to remember to properly subtract with mixed numbers. You have to change it to improper fractions first and then change it back to a mixed number for your answer. It is a lot more work, but you are able to do it. I know you can. All right, so we're going to find on example 2, 3 1/5 minus 2 2/5. So for my 3, I'm going to break it down into 1 plus 1 plus 1. And I know that each of those ones are going to be worth fifths because I looked at my denominator. So I have 5/5 plus 5/5 plus 5/5 plus the 1/5, and that's going to give me 16/5. Okay, so my first step is to take this first number and turn it into an improper fraction. My second step is to take the second number and turn it into an improper fraction. So my 2, I'm going to break down into 1 plus 1 plus 2/5. My 1s I know are 5/5 because of my denominator here. So 5 plus 5 plus 2 is 12, and I keep my denominator of 5. Okay? So now I take my 2 improper fractions and subtract. So I have 16/5 minus 12/5. I keep my denominator, and then I say 16 minus 12. 16 minus 12 is 4, and they go ahead and give us the hint of this fraction is already in simplest form. So 3 1/5 minus 2 2/5 equals 4/5. Okay, it says use addition to check. So I'm going to take my answer, 4/5. I'm going to add to it what I subtracted out of the original problem, and then it should equal what I started with. So 4/5 plus 2 2/5 equals 4/5 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2/5. And then it would, these two come together to make a 2. These two go together to make 6/5. Then I have to change 6/5 because 5 goes into 6 one whole time, 1 left over, 5 as a denominator. So then I've got 2 plus 1 plus 1/5 equals 3 1/5, and hopefully that's what I started with. Up here it is. Okay, so before I move on to do the rest of the problems with you, I am going to show you a quick trick rather than writing out your 1s every time. If you're in my class at school, I know some other people might be watching this video in addition to my class, but if you're in my class, you have seen this trick before. All right, so using this trick, if I wanted to change 3 1/5 into an improper fraction, I could very simply do this. Take my denominator, multiply it with my whole number, and add my numerator. So 5 times 3 plus 1 is 16, and then I keep the denominator. So I have 16/5. Looky there. I got the same thing as when I added my 1s like this. Okay, let's try this next one and see if it works again. 2 2/5. So I take my denominator, I multiply it by my whole number, and I add my numerator. 5 times 2 plus 2 equals 12. Keep my denominator, 5ths. Did I get the same thing? Yes, I did. So that is a trick that you can use to turn a improper fraction into a mixed number. Okay, so you don't have to write all of this out every time. You can make it a little simpler and quicker. And that's actually how I'm going to do the rest of these with you, is using this quick trick right here. It is important that you see why we get the answer that we do, but sometimes it's better to learn a quicker trick to help you get through the work a little quicker. All right, so let's look at this. If I have 5 4/8 minus 1 1/8, I'm going to say 8 times 5 is 40, plus 4 is 44/8 minus 8 times 1 plus 1 is 9/8. And then I'm going to subtract. I'm going to keep my denominator of 8. I'm going to say 44 minus 9. So that's going to give me 35. Okay. Can I have 35/8 as my answer? No, because that is an improper fraction, and I'd never report an improper fraction as an answer unless it's asking me for the improper fraction. Okay, so then I have to ask myself, to figure out what this mixed number is how many times does 8 go into 35? So let me think for a second of what I multiply to get 8. 8 times 4 is 32. So that's pretty close. So I'm going to say 4. And then to get from 32 to 35, I have 3 left over. And then I keep my denominator of 8. So the difference of 5 4/8 and 1 1/8 is 4 3/8. Okay. Hopefully you're starting to understand how we're doing this now. If you're not understanding yet, don't freak out. We have lots more practice problems to do. All right. So let's look at the next one. 6 1/3 minus 2 2/3. So I'm going to change these mixed numbers into improper fractions. Okay, so I'm going to say 3 times 6 plus 1, that's 19/3, minus 3 times 2 plus 2, that's 8 thirds. Okay, I'm going to keep my thirds on the bottom. 19 minus 8 is going to give me 11. That's an improper fraction, so I can't use it. So 3 goes into 11, 3 whole times, that's 9. So there's 2 left over, and then I leave 3 as my denominator. So 6 1/3 minus 2 2/3 is 3 2/3. Okay? All right, let's move on. We've got 9 more problems on the next page. Bear with me. We'll try to go through these quickly, but not so quickly that you're not understanding. Okay? So 5 4/5 minus 2 2/5. Now, I hate to throw another little trick at you, but I have another time saver. Let's look at this. If my whole numbers, if this one's larger than this one, which it should always be in this case, I could subtract. If this first number is larger than this number, I can also subtract. So I would say 5 minus 2 is 3, and 4 minus 2 is 2, and I keep my 5 as a denominator, okay? It worked on that one because the numbers in my first number are larger than the numbers in this number. It's not always going to work. For example, number 4, let's look at this. 3 is larger than 1, that would work, but 4 is not larger than 5, so I cannot subtract that. I have to turn these into an improper fraction, okay? So 6 times 3 plus 4 is 18 plus 4, so I have 22/6 minus 6 times 1 plus 5. It's going to give me 11/6. If I subtract 22/6 minus 11/6, I'm left with 11/6. And I have to say, how many times can 6 go into 11? It can only go in one full time. There's 5 left over, and 6 is my denominator. So that one equals 1 5/6. Okay? Let's look at number 5 and see if we can use this way. 8 is larger than 3. I can obviously subtract that. 2 and 2. Well, it's not larger, but I think I can still subtract that. Let's see what happens. 8 minus 3 is 5, and 2 minus 2 is 0. So 0/3 is the same as 0, so that answer is just simply 5. Okay? All right, let's move on to this one. We've got 6 1/4 minus 4 2/4. I cannot do 1 minus 2, so this is one that I have to turn into an improper fraction. 4 times 6 is 24, plus 1 is 25. So I've got 25/4 minus 4 times 4 is 16 plus 2, which gives me 18/4. 25/4 minus 18/4 is going to give me 7/4. 4 goes into 7 one whole time. There's 3 left over, and 4 is my denominator. So the answer to that one is 1 3/4. Because remember, you cannot report an improper fraction as your answer. You have to change it back to a mixed number. Okay, let's look at this one. Can I do 2 minus 1? Yes, I can, so I don't have to go through all this problem. All right, so 4 minus 2 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1, and I leave my denominator at 3. I'm already finished with that question. Okay, some of them just require more work. All right, let's look at this one. 3 minus 2, I can do it. So 6 minus 3 is 3. 3 minus 2 is 1, and I have a 4 as my denominator. Again, one of those easy ones that I can go ahead and subtract right out. Okay, 9 5/6 minus 7 2/6. I can do 5 minus 2, so I don't have to go through a whole bunch of work on this one. So 9 minus 7 is 2. 5 minus 2 is 3, 6. Now, got a little problem here. Can I have 3/6 in my answer? Absolutely not, because that is not the simplified form of that fraction. So I'm going to change it to 2 and, what number divides evenly into 3 and 6? 3. That's right. 3 divides into 3s, and 3 divides into 6. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So your final answer on that one is 2 1/2. Remember to always, always, always simplify, because if you do not write the simplified answer, it will be wrong. Okay, 6 7/8 minus 1 5/8. I can do 7 minus 5, so this one has a few less steps. 6 minus 1 is 5. 7 minus 5 is 2, and then I leave my denominator of 8. Again, we've come across a problem. 2/8 is not the simplified form of that fraction. So I'm going to keep my 5, and I'm going to say what number goes into 2 and 8 evenly. Well, the number that goes into 2 and 8 evenly is a 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So your answer should be 5 1/4. You can see that everything we've done in this chapter and the chapter before has led up to this point. We're using mixed numbers. We're using improper fractions. We're using simplified fractions. We're using equivalent fractions. So everything that we've done has led us up to this. This is like a review of all the things that we've done so far. Okay, let's look at the next one. 4 6/12 minus 3 5/12. I can do 6 minus 5. So 4 minus 3 is 1. 6 minus 5 is 1, and I keep my 12 as my denominator. There's nothing left to simplify, so we are finished with that page. If there is something that you had questions on or could not figure out or need more help with, there are several things that you can do. You can go back and watch me do these problems again. You can go back and watch me do this page again. You can search how to subtract mixed numbers, whatever. Khan Academy is always a great resource for those of you that maybe are not getting this. I know this is harder, okay? I know this one's harder. All right, let's go to the back. Let's finish out these last 5 problems, and then you're going to try it on your own on the homework page. Okay. Mrs. Garcia has 5 6/8 boxes of paper. She uses 3 7/8 boxes. How many boxes does she have left? Does she have left? That's going to tell me that I need to subtract. And then it tells me to write it in simplest form. So I'm going to say 5 6/8 minus 3 7/8. Now, I've got a 6 minus a 7. Can I do that? Nope. So I'm going to have to change these into improper fractions. So 8 times 5 plus 6 is going to give me 46/8. Okay, minus 8 times 3 plus 7 is 24 plus 7. So that's going to give me 31/8. Okay, 46 minus 31 is going to give me 15/8 as an answer. But can I have 15/8 as my answer? No, because that's an improper fraction. So I have to ask myself, how many times does 8 go into 15? It goes in 1 full time. So you write the full number. What is left over? A 7. That's your numerator. And what was my denominator? 8. It stays the same. So how many boxes does she have left? 1 7/8 boxes. Okay, moving on to number 13. Erwin let me start over. I can't even talk. Erwin had 2 5/12 gallons of lemonade. He spilled 11/12 gallons of lemonade. Ugh, that's unfortunate. How much lemonade does he have left? Write in simplest form. So I have 2 5/12 minus 11/12. Can I say 5 minus 11? No. So I'm going to have to change this mixed number into an improper fraction. Do I need to change this one at all? Nope, don't have to. It stays the same. So 12 times 2 is 24 plus 5. So I'm going to have 29/12 minus 11/12. Okay. 29 minus 11 is going to give me 18/12. Okay. I can't have that as my answer. So I'm going to say 12 goes into 18. 1 full time, there's 6 left over, and 12 is my denominator. That still can't be my answer. I have to simplify. So I'm going to keep that 1, and I'm going to say what number goes evenly into both 6 and 12. 2 does, but that's not the biggest one. 3 does, but that's not the biggest one. 6 does, and that is the biggest one. That's their greatest common factor, so I'm going to divide by 6. All right, 6 divided by 6 is 1. 12 divided by 6 is 2. So my final answer is 1 1/2. So Irwin has 1 1/2 gallons of lemonade left. Okay, moving on to number 14. Abby had 4 7/10 boxes of crackers. She used 1 9/10 boxes of crackers to make a snack for her class. How many boxes of crackers does she have left? Write in simplest form. Again, does she have left? Does he have left? Does she have left? That all means that we need to subtract. So let's figure out what we're going to do here. I'm going to say 4 7/10 minus 1 9/10. Okay. I can't say 7 minus 9, so I have to change these into improper fractions. So 10 times 4 plus 7 gives me 47/10. 10 times 1 plus 9 gives me 19/10. And now I need to subtract. I'm going to keep my 10 as my denominator. 47 minus 20 would be 27, but we're only subtracting 19. So that's going to be 28. So 28/10. I'm going to say how many times does 10 go into 28? It goes 2 full times. There's 8 left over, and 10 is my denominator. I'm still not finished, though, because I have to simplify. What number goes into both 8 and 10 evenly? 2. So I'm going to keep that big 2, and I'm going to divide both of these by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 10 divided by 2 is 5. My final answer is 2 4/5. So she has 2 4/5 boxes of crackers left. Okay. Okay. Number 15, it says a number minus 2 1/3 equals 3 1/3. What is the number minus 1/3, 1 1/3? So you have to think about how we checked these problems, okay? So it's kind of like this number minus 2 1/3 equals 3 1/3. Well, if I don't know this number and I subtract it over here, all I have to do is add these things together to figure out what goes in this box. So 2 plus 3 is 5. And then 1/3 plus 1/3 is 2/3. Okay. So let's put that in that box and make sure that it works. So 5 2/3. 5 minus 2 is 3. 2/3 minus 1/3 is 1/3. So the unknown there is the 5 2/3. You had to work backwards on that. Okay. Number 16, I probably won't write anything down, but let's look at it together and talk about it. It says, explain how you can check the answer to a subtraction problem involving mixed numbers. Include an example or support your reasoning. Well, actually, I feel like that's what we just did here. All you have to do is take your answer, add it back to what you subtracted from, and then you should get the number that you started with. We actually talked about that on some of the first problems we did in this lesson as well. All right, what you need to do now is the homework page for lesson 7, and then have your mom, dad, aunt, uncle, brother, sister, grandma, grandpa, whoever you live with, check you and make sure that you did it right. Once you've done that, then you can do my quiz online, okay, if you're in my class. We'll be back with lesson 8 tomorrow, which is modeling fractions and multiplication. So we've learned to add, subtract, fractions, add and subtract mixed numbers, and now we're going to move on to multiplying fractions, okay? So do all this, and I'll see you next time. Bye.